General Hospital will reveal exciting details over the next 2 weeks from February 24th to March 7th, 2025. First, Trina couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was off with Jocelyn. It wasn't just the way Jocelyn carried herself, tense shoulders, fleeting glances, and forced smiles, but also the way she carefully chose her words, deflecting whenever the conversation veered too close to anything serious. Trina had known Jocelyn long enough to recognize when she was hiding something, and this was one of those times. The tension in her friend's voice, the way she fidgeted, all pointed to a deeper concern buried beneath her dismissive remarks. But instead of offering an explanation, Jocelyn steered the conversation toward Kai, almost as if she was eager to change the subject. Trina hesitated for a moment, wondering whether she should press the issue further, but eventually, she allowed herself to be swept up in Jocelyn's diversion. As much as she hated being manipulated into shifting focus, Trina couldn't deny that Kai had occupied a space in her mind that she hadn't yet fully acknowledged. The way he looked at her, the way he listened with such genuine interest, it all felt new, different, and exhilarating in a way she hadn't anticipated. When they finally found themselves alone together, the air between them felt charged with an unspoken understanding. Kai had a quiet confidence about him, an ease that both intrigued and unnerved her. Trina found herself studying the way his eyes softened when he met her gaze, the way his presence made the world around them feel just a little bit smaller, a little more intimate. She wasn't sure if she was imagining it, but the pull between them was undeniable. As they stood there, inches apart, time seemed to slow. Trina could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears, a rapid rhythm that matched the anticipation crackling between them. She felt a flutter of nervous energy as Kai hesitated, his expression unreadable yet entirely focused on her. The warmth of his proximity sent a shiver down her spine, and for a brief second, she thought he might close the distance between them. It was a moment so delicate, so fragile, that even the slightest movement could change everything. She wondered if he could sense the internal battle she was waging, her mind warning her to be cautious while her heart urged her to let go, to take the risk. The tension was almost unbearable, an intoxicating mixture of excitement and uncertainty. But just as quickly as the moment had built, it lingered, unresolved. Kai didn't move closer, and neither did she. Instead, the anticipation hung between them like an unfinished sentence, an unspoken promise waiting to be fulfilled. Trina wasn't sure whether she felt relief or disappointment, but she knew one thing for certain, this wasn't over. Whatever was happening between them was only just beginning, and the next time they found themselves in this position, she wasn't sure she'd be able to resist the gravity pulling them together. Second, Ava felt a chill run down her spine as the front door swung open, revealing an unexpected visitor. Her eyes narrowed the moment she recognized Christina, whose expression held a mix of determination and defiance. No greetings were exchanged, Ava could already sense that Christina's presence was anything but coincidental. Her life was already complicated enough, but she hadn't anticipated Christina being the next person to stir the pot. The tension between them had never fully dissipated, and Ava knew Christina wasn't the type to back down once she set her sights on something. Whatever Christina wanted, Ava could tell it wouldn't end well for either of them. Meanwhile, across town, Dante was in the middle of a tense conversation with Alexis, briefing her on the latest developments regarding Cyrus. The news left Alexis uneasy, her mind spinning with questions that demanded answers. It wasn't just concern for her loved ones that gnawed at her, there was a deeper suspicion forming. Alexis had seen too many conspiracies unfold to believe this was as simple as it appeared. Her instincts as a journalist kicked in, pushing her to dig deeper. But to get to the truth, she needed a lead, someone who might have the answers she was looking for. Acting on this growing unease, Alexis made a bold move, sending out a request to a figure who could be connected to Cyrus and the web of events surrounding him. The biggest question weighing on her mind was whether Jason had a hand in it all. His return had been shrouded in mystery, and given his past, nothing was out of the realm of possibility. If anyone could make Cyrus disappear for good, Jason was undoubtedly a prime suspect. But was he truly behind it, or was there something even more dangerous lurking beneath the surface? As secrets simmered beneath the surface, the stakes grew higher for everyone involved. Ava now faced an unexpected battle with Christina, Alexis ventured into a dangerous investigation, and somewhere in the shadows, Jason might be orchestrating a plan no one saw coming. The pieces were moving, the tension rising, yet the real question remained: when the truth finally came to light, who would be left standing? Third, there was a growing possibility that Brennan played a role in Jason's latest legal troubles, especially if new evidence suddenly surfaced that pointed directly at him. Whether it was an intentional move or an unfortunate consequence of Brennan's ambitions, Jason now found himself in a precarious position. The weight of suspicion was shifting in his direction, and if Brennan had indeed orchestrated this, he was treading on dangerous ground. With Jason already under scrutiny, it wouldn't take much to tip the scales against him, and Brennan might have just set something in motion that he couldn't control. However, in his pursuit of power and control, Brennan was playing with fire, particularly when it came to Carly. His connection with her was still fragile, built on a foundation that had yet to fully solidify. If Carly discovered that Brennan had manipulated the situation to frame Jason or push him further into legal jeopardy, it could destroy whatever they had before it truly began. Carly was fiercely loyal to the people she loved, and Jason was at the top of that list. Any betrayal, direct or indirect, would not only shatter her trust but also turn her into an enemy Brennan might not be prepared to handle. Meanwhile, Jason's legal predicament forced Jocelyn into a life-altering decision. Her devotion to Jason was unwavering, but she understood that simply standing by his side might not be enough this time. With limited options and increasing pressure, she faced a dilemma: should she come forward with a confession that could place her in legal trouble, or should she make a deal that could change the course of her life? The prospect of joining the WSB loomed over her, a path that might secure Jason's freedom if Brennan was willing to pull the right strings. It was a choice that required her to weigh personal sacrifice against her unwavering loyalty. No matter what Jocelyn decided, Carly was bound to be blindsided by the fallout. The revelation that Jocelyn was entangled in Brennan's web would send shockwaves through her, making the truth even harder to swallow. Carly had always been fiercely protective of her daughter, and the idea that Brennan might have influenced Jocelyn's choices would infuriate her. As the pieces continued falling into place, Carly would find herself in a position where she had to confront Brennan, demand answers, and possibly make a decision that could change all their lives. With secrets unraveling and tensions rising, the stage was set for explosive confrontations in the episodes ahead. Meanwhile, Nina would make an unexpected and unwelcome appearance at Drew's new residence, setting the stage for a fiery confrontation. Her arrival was anything but casual. She was there with a purpose, one that Drew would immediately recognize and reject. The tension between them had been simmering for a while, but now, with emotions running high and old wounds still fresh, their conversation quickly escalated into an argument. Drew, already exhausted from everything he had endured, had no patience for Nina's presence and made it clear that she was not welcome. However, Nina was never one to back down easily, and rather than leaving, she dug her heels in, determined to make her point. Despite Drew's insistence that she go, Nina seemed to take pleasure in pressing his buttons, lingering just long enough to test his limits. Her presence alone was enough to irritate him, but her words carried an even sharper edge. Whether intentional or not, she found ways to provoke him, reminding him of past betrayals and stirring up his frustration. The longer she stayed, the more she disrupted the fragile peace he had been trying to establish. If she couldn't win him over, she could at least rattle him, and in her mind, that might be enough. But Nina's true objective wasn't just to torment Drew, it was to drive a wedge between him and Willow. The relationship between Drew and Willow had strengthened in the aftermath of recent events, and that was something Nina couldn't afford to ignore. She knew that in order to secure her place in Willow's life, she needed to manipulate the situation to her advantage. Every interaction, every confrontation with Drew, was another opportunity to undermine him, planting seeds of doubt and discord. Whether through direct interference or subtle maneuvering, Nina remained relentless in her mission to fracture their bond. Meanwhile, Tracy was preparing to make a bold move of her own against Drew, ensuring that the conflicts in his life were far from over. Tracy's methods were often ruthless, and this time would be no different. Whether she was motivated by personal vendettas, business interests, or a combination of both, her actions would escalate tensions even further. Drew was already dealing with enough chaos, but Tracy's interference would push things to a whole new level, leaving him to wonder just how many enemies he had to fend off at once. Fifth, in another development, Molly would find herself confiding in Cody, deepening their connection as they moved toward a potential romance. What started as a simple conversation soon turned into something more intimate, as Molly allowed herself to be vulnerable in a way she hadn't before. Cody, known for his rough edges and unpredictable nature, surprised her with his ability to listen and offer support without judgment. Their dynamic was evolving, and though Molly hadn't initially seen Cody as someone she could open up to, there was an undeniable chemistry between them. The more time they spent together, the more she found herself drawn to him, wondering if what they had was just a fleeting comfort or something worth exploring further. Meanwhile, Isaiah and Jordan continued navigating the complexities of their own romance, though the shadows of danger loomed over them. Their relationship had been growing stronger, but Isaiah couldn't shake his unease about Jordan's risky plans involving Jens. She was walking a fine line, and Isaiah knew all too well how these kinds of situations could spiral out of control. Though he respected Jordan's determination and fierce sense of justice, he feared that she was taking too many chances, putting herself in unnecessary danger. Despite his concerns, Jordan remained resolute, unwilling to back down from what she saw as her mission, even if it meant testing the limits of their relationship. The tension between them grew as Isaiah struggled to reconcile his feelings for Jordan with his fears about her choices. He wanted to support her, but he also couldn't ignore the warning signs flashing in front of him. His instincts told him that the situation with Jens was more dangerous than Jordan was willing to admit, and he wasn't sure how much longer he could stand by while she put herself at risk. As much as he cared for her, he needed to decide whether he could truly be with someone who seemed determined to walk a path that could lead to disaster. As all these relationships continued to evolve, the lines between personal desires and external dangers blurred. Molly and Cody were slowly stepping into something new, filled with uncertainty but also excitement. Isaiah and Jordan, on the other hand, faced the reality that love wasn't always enough to bridge the gap between differing perspectives. With high-stakes risks and emotional entanglements intertwining, all of them were on the brink of decisions that could change their futures forever. Sixth, after Harrison Chase made an unexpected suggestion, Brooke Lynn was left utterly shocked. She hadn't anticipated anything that could shake her so deeply, but the moment Chase spoke, she knew she was at a crossroads. If his idea involved uncovering the truth about her long-lost child, then she was about to face something she had buried for years. The mere possibility of opening that door again left her breathless, and as much as she wanted to deny it, Chase had struck a nerve. Meanwhile, Lois, who had always known the painful truth, was thrown into a quiet panic. She had worked tirelessly to protect Brooke Lynn's secret, but now, it seemed that the past was finally catching up with them. Worse yet, Lois knew exactly who the child was, Giovanni Gio Palmieri, a young man unknowingly tied to a mother who had given him away. If this search continued, the truth wouldn't stay hidden for long. As Chase wrestled with his own thoughts, he turned to Dante, seeking guidance from someone he trusted. In doing so, he revealed the deeply buried truth, that Brooke Lynn had once been pregnant as a teenager and had chosen adoption for her child. Dante was taken aback, blindsided by the revelation that his longtime friend had carried such a secret. But a new, unsettling thought took root in his mind. Was it possible that Brooke Lynn's child was his? Had she hidden the truth from him all these years, knowing it would change everything? The idea unsettled him, stirring up emotions he hadn't expected. If there was even a chance that he had a son out there, he needed answers. But getting to the truth wouldn't be easy, not when Brooke Lynn had spent so long trying to move forward. Meanwhile, Lulu, still recovering but more perceptive than ever, began picking up on strange details that didn't quite add up. Her instincts told her that something was off, and the more she observed Brooke Lynn and Dante's reactions, the clearer it became that there was a missing piece to the puzzle. Lulu had always been sharp when it came to uncovering the truth, and this time would be no different. Whether it was a glance, a hushed conversation, or an unusual tension between those involved, she was determined to figure out what was really going on. Before long, Lulu found herself in the right place at the right time, or perhaps the wrong place, depending on the perspective. Overhearing a conversation she wasn't meant to, she began piecing together the mystery, realizing that this wasn't just about Brooke Lynn's past. It was about Dante's as well. If what she suspected was true, then everything they thought they knew was about to change. But the biggest question remained: once the truth came to light, would it bring people together, or tear them apart? 7th, elsewhere, Sunny would receive a warning, one that could change everything. Whether it was related to his own health or the growing chaos surrounding Sidwell, the message would not be something he could afford to ignore. Over the years, Sunny had faced countless threats, but there was something different about this one. The tension in the air was undeniable, and whoever was delivering the warning seemed to understand the magnitude of what was coming. If Sidwell was truly setting his sights on Sunny, then this was no ordinary enemy, this was someone willing to go to extreme lengths to take him down. Sidwell had been maneuvering in the shadows for some time, and now, it was clear that he was actively pursuing the Mafia kingpin. With his influence spreading, it was only a matter of time before their worlds collided in a way that neither could ignore. The warning Sunny received could be the first indication that Sidwell was making his move, preparing to strike in a way that would shake Sunny's empire to its core. The question wasn't just whether Sunny would retaliate, but how far he was willing to go to protect what was his. As always, he would not sit back and wait for his enemies to come to him, he would take action, and it would be swift. Meanwhile, Natalia's long-held secret was on the verge of being exposed. Between March 3rd and March 7th, the truth about her past could finally come to light, sending shockwaves through those around her. For years, she had done everything in her power to bury the connection, to keep her past with Sidwell from defining her present. But with the walls closing in, she would have no choice but to confront the truth. The real question was whether she would admit it willingly or if circumstances would force her hand. If Natalia revealed that Sidwell was her dangerous ex-husband, it would change everything, especially for Sunny. The man he was preparing to go to war with wasn't just a formidable foe, he was someone with deeply personal ties to a woman Sunny had come to trust. The revelation would add a new layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Would Sunny see Natalia as an ally, or would he begin to question her loyalty? No matter what happened, the stakes had never been higher, and the choices made in the coming days would have consequences that no one could escape. Finally, Sidwell had always been calculating, but now, with the knowledge that Sasha was pregnant, his schemes carried an even darker edge. Depending on his true intentions, he could pose a significant risk to Sasha and her unborn child. Whether he saw her as leverage, a means to an end, or something even more sinister remained unclear, but the danger was real. Sasha had endured more than her fair share of loss and trauma, and the idea that someone as ruthless as Sidwell might have her in his sights was unsettling. His moves were strategic, never careless, which meant whatever he had planned wasn't just an idle threat, it was a calculated decision meant to benefit him in ways yet to be revealed. Meanwhile, Lois was teetering on the edge of panic as Brooke Lynn began taking official steps to uncover the truth about her firstborn child. For years, Lois had kept the secret buried, believing that it was for the best, but now, with Brooke Lynn actively seeking answers, she felt the weight of everything she had tried to suppress crashing down on her. Every instinct screamed at her to intervene, to do whatever it took to shut down the search before it went too far. But how far was she willing to go? Would she manipulate situations, feed Brooke Lynn false leads, or even go so far as to destroy any evidence that could lead to the truth? Lois had always been a fighter, but this battle wasn't against an outside force, it was against her own daughter's right to know the truth. The looming question remained, was Lois truly protecting Brooke Lynn, or was she protecting herself from the consequences of what she had done? If Brooke Lynn uncovered the truth, would she ever forgive Lois for keeping such a monumental secret from her? The fear of losing her daughter might be what drove Lois to desperate measures, but desperation had a way of leading people down dangerous paths. The longer she resisted, the more inevitable it became that the truth would come out, one way or another. With the next 2 weeks promising major revelations and high-stakes confrontations in Port Charles, the drama was only beginning. Secrets long buried were beginning to resurface, and